Hello and welcome to this short video on educational video production. The theme of this video is going to be educational video and television and those characteristics that make a video or a broadcast into an educational one. We've already seen in previous materials that an educational video starts off with an idea and ends with a production which is made available on the internet or on DVD. Sometimes it's broadcast, and we saw by definition that this is what makes it into a television program. But we saw that basically at the start of the process there's an idea, and the realization of that idea is the production process. But what actually makes that production process into an educational one? And are there any aspects of the production process that we need to follow if we are going to produce something that is educational material? So if we start to think about this, it's useful to think about what the best uses of TV and video are in education, and there's a number of different ones. One of the authors that we'll be using a number of academic quotations from is Tony Bates, and he says television is generally considered to be an expensive use of resources, and when it is used in open learning, it's often used very badly. However, television can be an extremely valuable resource when used selectively and with care. So there are good uses and bad uses of video and television in education. So what are the characteristics of the good ones? Well, he says, a well-designed television component can not only help reduce dropout and increase comprehension, it can also assist in the development of higher order thinking skills. So he suggested video and TV have a role to play providing it's going to be well designed. One thing we can start to think about is the different kinds of video here, and he makes a distinction between formal uses of video and informal uses. He says that there are the formal structures for educational broadcasting in Britain. However, general television can have an educative effect. People can learn from the news, documentaries, drama, and even comedy programs. The formal structures are important, but it's becoming more and more difficult to maintain a distinction between educational and educative programs. Now what he suggests here is that we can learn things from watching the news or watching a documentary or watching a quiz program or a number of other video or broadcast materials. But he indicates that these things are incidental. We never really set out to learn these things. So if we learn a fact from a quiz program, we never really set out to learn that fact, no matter how interesting it might be. Formal education, on the other hand, has learning objectives, and these are useful to think about when we're actually trying to make an educational video. Other authors on the subject also comment on this. DeLuca says that instruction is the process of imparting a specific piece of knowledge or a specific skill to a particular person or a group. Education is a larger enterprise of which instruction is a single instance. So what DeLuca suggests here is that instruction is one activity within a broad spectrum of educational video. Instruction might be, for example, making a cooking program and following a recipe so you can follow it step by step, where instruction can be seen in the sequence. Or it can be one of a number of other activities that show an instructional process that lead us to a learning objective. Now all of this is useful because it breaks down the idea of what educational video is into a number of different aspects, and that's useful when planning our own educational video activities. So already we're starting to see a distinction between what Bates called the educative effect, in other words entertainment, where learning is achieved informally, an educational aspect which relates to a specific course or a learning objective, and an instructional video or television sequence whereby something's demonstrated and you get the idea of the order of something that you can go away and try and replicate. Now, there are other authors on the subject as well who've been here for some time, and they talk about how effective video and television is for achieving an educational goal. Wilbur Schramm reviewed and conducted research in the 1970s. And he said that from the experimental studies, we have plentiful evidence that people learn from the media, but very little evidence as to which medium, in a given situation, can bring about the most learning. Schramm leaves a little doubt as to whether a book or a video or some other material can achieve the same learning objectives, and which achieves them the best. Now, other research has also been carried out. Bates goes on in other work to say there is a good deal of research evidence which suggests that the content may be learnt just as well through television as through print. So Bates here compares print and television media and says that content may just as well be learnt through both. But there may be other aspects to what video can do well that perhaps other media can't. Bates goes on to say that television is much better for dealing with complex or ambiguous situations, for providing concrete examples to illustrate abstract ideas or principles, and for encouraging students to make their own interpretations and to apply what they've learned in an abstract way to new situations. So here we can see the idea of concrete examples arriving from abstract ideas or principles in a video form, which is something we can relate to the production process that we talked about earlier. Other authors have also said different things. Alexander commented that Sesame Street was designed to promote the intellectual and cultural growth of preschoolers, particularly disadvantaged preschoolers. So a lot of work has to go into the production planning of a series like Sesame Street. And the more planning that's done to take that abstract idea into a finished video or broadcast reality, the better it may be at achieving its educational objectives. So how do we use this, and how do we think if we're trying to create an educational video, where do we really start? Well, we've got a quote from Bates again. He says that a skilled television producer may be able to suggest ways of using television which would never occur to a teacher without any experience of using television. What Bates is saying is that if you bring a television producer with all the skills that they have and a teacher with their understanding of learning, and you put the two together, then you're going to create a good educational video, because each can bring their own skills and insights into the specialist processes that each have got. Now, other people have done work on this as studies. A chap called Ricky Tell did a study in a television studio where he brought educators and TV producers together. He said that as a result of that activity, there was a mindset change amongst television specialists for the following reasons. They became aware of the needs of the audience, they judged content to be as important, if not more important than aesthetics, and they participated closely in the relationship between instructor and students. So Tell's work tells us that when you put producers and teachers and educators together, they'll each learn something about the views and processes each other brings. In this case, what he said was that the producers learnt more about the content and they started to put content over aesthetics. What Tell's work doesn't tell us is what the teachers took away and how they started to look at the relative production values and the merits of aesthetics alongside content. And this is one of the balances to strike when we're actually making educational video. How can we make it attractive and visually appealing and have some aesthetics, but also put across the content, the course information or the instruction that we're trying to get across without making it look too dull or making it just become entertainment. And that's a point we're going to be picking up at the start of the next video in this series.